Join me welcome our founder, Jerry Brassfield.
Wow. Thank all of you for being here. It's takes a little effort. But I always dread the travel part, getting from A to B. But when I arrive, then I'm so happy that I put up with that. I've really enjoyed the comments from all of you this morning. Thank you, Charlotte, Hafiz, the others who have made told a little bit of their story. I will tell you, I'm going to tell you a little bit of the story of NeoLife and a little bit of the story of myself, and I'll tell you how I prepared for this morning. And that is two comments last night. Drew McDermott, one of the comments was when you started the few comments at our gathering, and you said that God has had his hand on NeoLife from the beginning. And so I listened to that. I didn't think too much about it. I then went over and I was drinking a glass of water and standing at that stand-up bar there area. And so, and Kendra was there, and it's quite normal for me to ask Kendra, is there any one thing you would like for me to emphasize in my talk? And sometimes it's quite normal for her to give me something. If we're in a market where recruiting is a little bit slow, she'll tell me to make a few comments about that. Last night was different. She said, thought about it. She said, I want you to talk about whatever the Holy Spirit leads you to. That was my instruction. Okay. So I go to my room with Susan, and I was woke up multiple times during the night, and with part of whatever I'm going to tell you today, what I'm going to talk about. It was, and I will, I think that the core of accomplishing what we want to do, and that is our mission statement. We would like to show people and lead them in a way that their health improves, because we all know individuals who have lost their health for one reason or another, and life becomes really not worth living once that occurs. So while we're on this earth, health is foremost. And then also, we need to somehow be able to get ourselves out of just the sea of humanity that is flowing along, where people end up at our ages, most of us, and end up broke and dependent upon something, and poor health, and all the rest of the things that go with the things that our governments tell us to do, okay? Which is go, and my father bought into this. He would say, get a steady job and earn some money and take care of yourself, right? So anyway, I believe at the core of us changing ourselves and helping someone else is there has to come a time when we switch from knowing about something, knowing about nutrition, knowing about the marketing, and actually believing and I actually become radicalized about believing. And once we do that, then our words, our actions take on a power and a strength that we didn't have before, okay? I'm looking, I remember times when, Charlie, I can remember you at the first leadership school at the ranch in California, and you had not become total believer at that time, but things happened after that, and you not only became, we'll call it, I don't know of another word, because when you totally believe, you act differently than when you just know about something. I'll give you a couple of things to check yourself if you totally believe. Well, first of all, are you taking yourself all of the products that you have at your disposal, and are you doing it on a daily basis, and are you using those products to improve your health, and are you using those products to lose the weight, whatever you want to need to be done? Are you doing that? If you're not, you're not really a believer yet. Okay? Are you causing your family, okay, to use the products also? Are you constantly on your family and friends about taking these products and doing the other things too, eating a proper diet, exercising? Are you truly believing that this is a life-changing event? Do you, another thing to check is, do you understand the marketing plan? Okay, you'd be surprised how many of our distributors have been around a while, they don't really understand how it works. And these are things that everybody can correct. Not only am I talking to you about this, but you need and I need to be talking to everybody about this. Now, I have a few children, okay? And, I have, of course, I have a daughter that's Kendra's older half-sister, Melissa. And Melissa takes the products, okay? Okay. And my grandson, Gavin, who just turned, I think, 16, and he's off to college, now 17, just got his driver's license last week. And he takes the product. He's an athlete, and he believes in the products, okay? My son, Darren, middle son, doesn't take the products on a regular basis, okay? Has a few health issues, okay? My older son, Tony, takes some products, but he took them after he was heavy all of his life, because that was one of his sins. The Bible says that gluttony is a sin. Gluttony, by the way, doesn't mean being fat. It means eating more than you need. That's what gluttony is. I do that once in a while. But anyway, Tony's health gave way, heart problem and so on. So Tony, and then Tony finally, after he had all these issues, he went from 400 pounds down to 180, 90, right in there. Okay? But his heart, he has problems, operating at 40%. But, I have so many people, my father never took the products, my mother did. But I always asked my father, please take the products. And I would explain to him, and so on. He wouldn't do it. I don't want to take medicine. I said, it's not medicine. He couldn't get it. I said, well, look, you have the cattle, and you test the grass, and the nutrients come up short, and you have the food then concentrated with vitamins and minerals for your cattle. But you don't do it for yourself, right? And he still didn't get it, okay? Still didn't get it. Now, I'm not saying that everybody that we talk to will fall in line and use our products, but when we believe, we keep on talking. We keep on talking, not only and we don't care what anybody else thinks about it. When we're a believer, we don't care what other people think. And the things that we're afraid they might think, worry, they're already thinking it. You know, they're already thinking it. They know. Okay? They know. So I'm going to say, I'm going to underpin my message by that belief. And I'm going to talk to you how I became a believer. First of all, I was raised in a Christian home. And you know my story, I had severe asthma. And when I tell you I almost died every year, that's the truth. I mean, I almost would die. And you know, my mother would pray for me out loud, and I heard her prayers that God would heal me of this. And one night, it was so bad, she called the minister of the church and had him come over. And when he got there, I heard her through the wall. I've told this many times, but she said, I'm sorry for calling you, but I don't think Jerry's going to make it tonight, okay? And so I'm sitting up in bed, pulling for every breath with what energy I had left. And so, anyway, that night, her and the minister prayed for me, and my breathing immediately stopped, and it was free, and it was like I didn't have a problem. And I was so happy because I thought God had healed me. But he had other things in mind, okay? I got sick again. And then my mother, you know, in her prayers, and you know, the Bible teaches us how to pray, and it says something to the effect that, one, ask and you shall receive, right? Seek and you shall find, knock, and it shall be given and open. One translation says open, one says give. Same thing. It's ask, you know, seek, right? There's three parts. Why didn't God write in the Bible just ask? And most people, their prayers, they just ask, and that's the end of it. They just ask. God, give me a new car. Forget about it, right? Doesn't happen, right? But here's what happened with my mother. She's prayed for God to heal me, and then she, you know, seeked out solutions. She went and asked people, do you know of anything? Do you know of it? Is there anything I can do? The doctors aren't helping Jerry. You know, she seeked, okay? And then when she got referrals or she got some knowledge, she then went and knocked. And that led her to nutritional products, which I've told you, cod liver oil. Have you taken a few spoonfuls of cod liver oil right out of the fish? Well, it tastes terrible, you know. And then some liquid vitamins that had no effort to make them taste better. Just liquid, thick vitamins that also taste as equally as bad as cod liver oil. And she made me take them. After one spoonful or two, I didn't want to do it anymore. Okay? But she would say, no, Jerry, come here. Take me in front of this old refrigerator, you know, and open it up and large spoons and take that terrible tasting. You know what, though? See, that was the result of praying, asking, you know, God, please, you know, provide a solution for Jerry, you know, seeking it out, and then knocking on the door of someone who says, try this because it helped my son. I don't know how many doors she had to walk through to get that, but then I could, looking back on it at the time, I couldn't follow that. I could only see that connecting the dots that already happened. Okay, but that actually that's when NeoLife started, as we know it today. That's where it started. Because I heard her prayers. She prayed out loud, okay? And I heard her prayers. I watched her, you know, network around, and I watched her get this stuff and bring it home. And then later in life, this is from maybe 4 years later or so, I am offered the opportunity of becoming a distributor of some nutritional products, okay? And that Now, I was a believer. By that time, and you know, people in the community, everybody knew what everybody's doing in that little town of Porterville. We, first of all, if you made a telephone call, everybody knew, because you could hear, if people were not interested in what you were saying, you could hear them hang up. Click, 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 you know. And if it was juicy, you know, nobody would click, you know, they want to hear it. You know, we had switchboard operators that would take your call, plug it in, and it was like, you know, putting it on the radio, okay? So, but anyway, that's led to that. And so then when I became interested, I thought, I can sell these products, and I know they help people. And so that is, then I can look back and I can say, well, I can see why God did not heal me when he just showed me that, okay, you know, prayer works, because all of a sudden I could breathe that night instantly. Okay, when I'm about to die, that never happened before. And then now I'm experiencing all of that, and then I'm saying, okay, you know, I'm looking back on it, and I'm saying, yeah, this is now. Then I thought, you know what? I watched prayer work before, because my mother was very specific in her prayers. I've heard her pray for some green beans. My father was out doing his job, and the family didn't have enough money to go buy some of the vegetables and things. And my mother prayed, and then my father brought home a big bag of green beans that one of his customers had given him. So I watched this prayer thing. I watched it unfold. Okay, and of course, then that leads me to things that sometimes I think they're miracles, but I think it's just God doing his thing. Okay. It's about everyday business with him. I mean, if he can create the universe and all that's in it, and have, you know, that's a miracle. You know, what he's doing in my life is probably, okay, well, you know, the Bible says that we can be guided by God in our everyday. And all of you that have spoken have brought up God in his name, and you've brought up how blessed we are, blessed of God, by the way. And you brought up, but I have to tell you that I wasn't born with a big vision. You know, I was the type of kid that I've told you about. And then along the way, and by the way, I'm not perfect. You know, we're all sinners, by the way. We all do things we shouldn't do. We think thoughts we should not think. You know, somebody wrongs us, we think about revenge, okay? I'll get even with that person. You think they hurt me? Wait till you see what I do to you, right? You know, that's normal. I do that all the time. I don't act on it, hopefully, but I think about it, okay? I don't act on it. You know, also, you know, I think I think thoughts of sometimes envy. I try to put away jealousy. You know, now all the big sins, we all say, oh, I don't do that. Adultery, I don't steal, I don't lie too much anyway. Only little lies. Yeah. I didn't see any scale of lies, you know, and how God grades us, but no, we all sin. We all fall short. We all pass on rumors sometimes about somebody or something that we don't know for sure. You know, we all gossip. Well, that's listed right along with all the rest of them, right? We all gossip. You know, did you hear about this? You hear about that, right? You know, what about all so and so? We gossip about bad things, not good things. Did you hear how great they are? Did you hear about you know? No, we gossip. All those things, along with, of course, gluttony, eating too much, and so on. Now, we pay the price for these things, you know, because it'll destroy friendships, it'll destroy, you know, gossip and rumors and things, it'll destroy friendships, but it also destroys ourselves along with it. And so we're people. We're just people, and we not only have made mistakes, we will make mistakes today and in the future. But, you know, we can't help that. We are human. Now, here comes along with that realization And I'm going to give you a couple things. Now, that's my story of how I became to believe like I do. And that has carried me through the ups and the downs and all the rest of the things that happen along the journey of NeoLife. But now let's look at some things that happened with NeoLife. The first company I joined went broke. But I knew I loved this business model, and I love this nutritional business. So I joined the second company. It went broke, you know, and I think that was just setting the stage for NeoLife, where NeoLife operates. You know, so time to time it'll have a little bit of debt where we bought some supplies or something, but we could pay off all the debt and everything else, and we keep heavy cash balances so that the company is not in jeopardy ever. And I think seeing those two companies go broke and having to deal with that as a distributor, think about it. I had to go around and tell the people that I talked into becoming a distributor, you know, guess what? The dream is over. You know, we're broke. The company's broke. That's painful. Now, along with that, here comes what started out to be Golden Products, right? And then we were fortunate enough to acquire first 1/3 and then the balance of 2/3 of the NeoLife company, right? They were already making our products in Golden. Okay? NeoLife Manufacturing Company was doing that. And Don Pickett, bless his heart, you know, who was the founder actually of the NeoLife brand, okay? Don Pickett, then he came to me and he wanted us to have 1/3, so we bought it. And he didn't want us to take the manufacturing someplace else. It was just a business decision on his part. Then we got to know each other. And then a few years later, he came and said, you know, called my brother, Bob, and said, would you like to buy the other 2/3 of the company? And so we met for lunch. And I'll let you decide if this is a miracle or not. I don't know. He said, I want to sell you the company. I don't think anybody in my family will take care of the distributors in the right way. That was what he said. So I want you to buy the company, and the 2/3 of the company was $10 million. Okay, at the time that would be today probably 20, maybe 40 million. I don't know today's dollars because they're not worth as much as they were that many years ago. But anyway, he said, and by the way, this is not going to be difficult for you because I want you to pay me $2 million now down, and then the balance you can pay whenever you want. And he said, there's $5 million in the NeoLife bank, and so you can take the $2 million out of there and you can give it to me. Is that okay? Is that a miracle? Is that just it's just God having his way and having his hand on what we're doing? Okay, I don't know. I'll let you decide. Now we're going along. Guess what? Before that happened, we were doing business in Asia, and we had products being shipped out of California. They went through a trading company that we set up in Hong Kong, and then the money would go, and then the products would go on to wherever the money came from. So what happened was, and we didn't have all the money in the world at that time. We had about $1.5 million that we used to buy and sell these products. You know, you got to have money to operate with, right? And there was a there was a Korean accountant named Sam Kikuchi, okay, in Japan. And we noticed that when we would ship the product to Japan, the bill would come for the product from Hong Kong, and then they would send the money into our bank account in Hong Kong, okay? And then it would show up. Now, one of our employees, Pat Colvin, he's passed on now, but he noticed that the money wasn't showing up in our Hong Kong account, okay? So he investigated and whatnot and went over to see, because the office said, yes, no, we sent the money. We did send the money, but then Pat couldn't see it. And so now I'm down in Mexico City. I'm doing the paperwork on adopting Melissa, a little girl. Now she, at that time, she would have been 5 and 6, would be 11 months old. We got her when she was 5 months old, had to wait 6 months before the adoption could go through. I'm down there, and because all adoptions take place in Mexico City, I'm down there. I get a call from Pat Colvin, who was in Japan. He said, oh, we got a big problem. He said, I'm here. Sam Kikuchi has disappeared. We have, he set up a bank account in Hong Kong that's under the same name. And that's his bank account. And instead of sending the money to our bank account, he sent it to his. And it's $1.2 million, which left us $300,000 to operate on. And he said, I don't know what we're gonna do. He said, we can't survive with that. That night in a hotel room in Mexico City, I knelt down and I asked God to change Sam Kikuchi's mind. That's what I said. Change his heart and his mind, God, and that's all I ask. Now, 2 days go by. Pat Colvin calls me back. He said, well, you're not going to believe it. Now, Sam Kikuchi had the money. He had gone to Korea, and he's disappeared amongst all the Koreans. Okay, and you know those Koreans all look alike. Okay, they say that about we say that about everything. And he said, you're not going to believe it. Sam Kikuchi walked in the office today, and he said, I need help. I don't want to be a criminal. I will return the money. And would you find me a counselor in California to help me get my mind straight and whatnot? I referred him to, I said yes, and we paid for it. We paid $4,000 for him to have counseling. And the last I heard, which is years ago, Sam Kikuchi was back into Korea, and he had become a minister, had a child ministry in Korea, okay? Now, you can tell me if that's a miracle or I don't know. That's something that happened. Now, so how could I ever not believe, okay? I'm a believer. I'm a believer. I'm a believer in God. I'm a believer in the Bible, and I'm a believer in what we're doing here with NeoLife, because we are helping people. We can't help people if we don't believe enough to approach them, not care what anybody thinks about it, right? And tell them, we have something for you, right? You know, now it's getting easier and easier, okay? It's getting easier and easier because in the United States and the other places I go around the world, we were, you know, misled about COVID-19. We were told that we have to have these shots or we can't travel. You know, we have we were told all these things. We have to stand 6 feet apart. What a joke, you know. And, you know, and if you take these vaccines, you will not get COVID-19. Well, I took them and I've had it twice, okay? Yeah. And it's not even as bad as a cold, okay? Not even bad as my normal colds. But, you know, the thing is that, and all the damage that's happened, we know friends and we know people, both young and old, who are suffering for these, from the effects or having passed on, you know. One of our good women friends that we've known for 25 years out of New York, her father was 70 years old, and he was perfectly healthy, took the COVID shots, and he died a week later, okay? There was another friend and wife, and Susan and I would go once a year or so. We would meet at a Christmas dinner, and we'd sit with them, and we had something in common and whatnot. He took the COVID-19 shots, and he was dead a couple weeks later. You know, we've had there's a very high incidence of harmful effects of COVID shots, along with a lot of other of the vaccinations. Right now, the truth is being put out there, and I'll tell you what, if you haven't had it, don't take any of these shots, okay? Just, you know, and also, look what the government did during the same time. They said, hey, you better take vitamin D, you better take this, you better take that, and build up your immune system, okay? Because your immune system will protect you, okay? Now we find out that some of the things they are recommending to get rid of this in your system are some of the things that are in our products, you know? And so, you know, we are blessed. We are blessed. I would just say I would encourage each and every one of us, okay? Because it's an ongoing, everyday battle. Thank you, Afis, for pointing this out this morning so powerfully. That it's knowing what. See, we can't help people if we don't introduce anybody. You know, this doesn't happen by osmosis. You know, this doesn't happen by just thinking about helping somebody. Okay, this happens when we convince somebody to have a look and to take care of themselves in a way that's better. And by the way, make a little bit of profit along the way, because we have to stay mobile in order to get this job done. So I want to encourage all of you to reset your thinking. Okay, make sure you believe. Make sure you believe, and give yourself the test. Okay, do you believe? And then once you believe, you know, and don't look. By the way, I just had a thought. Don't look for that. If I were to say, how would you like, all of you like to find a go-getter, somebody that's really going to do this thing and they're going to just set the world on fire and everything? How would you like to find that person to sponsor? And everybody would raise their hand. A lot of people would. I'll tell you what, in my 60-something years, I've never found one. Not even one. You know what? You know, those people are busy. They're doing something else. You know, they're too busy to even listen to you. But I found a lot of people like Charlie and Alta, okay? You know, I found people, everyday people. You know, when Jesus, by the way, he didn't go get the top people in the synagogues to go be his disciples. He went out and found some fishermen. You know, that's 12 fishermen. Okay, yeah. You know, give me some people, regular people who need better health, who need a little more money. Okay, who need what we have, and let's help them start on this path, and then their experiences. Opening those doors that were talked about, every experience will teach you something if you pay attention. And if you judge by results, okay? Every experience will teach you that. And then pretty soon, you're going to find that as you learn and grow by doing, not thinking, you know, you got to think, but you got to do. You got to know about something, and then you've got to take action and do something. That's the key. So I'm not going to take any more of your time, but I have enjoyed being here. I've enjoyed speaking with you, and God bless all of you.
Wow.